everybody, welcome back to the first video of this, era of the channel. And because this phase is going to be more geared towards making your own patterns, improvising patterns, things like that, so you're not reliant on a specific, ready-made pattern for yourself, I thought that the first thing that would be really important is to come up with a way that you could make a bodice block, but easily. Now, the traditional way of making your own customized bodice block pattern piece, which is like a standard bodice shape that fits you, that you can modify to make all kinds of things from. But usually it involves an insane amount of measurements in places you can't reach on your own, and trigonometry and geometry, drawing it out, and it's very, very problematic unless you're really experienced with it. And I wanted to come up with a way that someone who is not planning on making pattern making their life's work, come up with an easy way for you to create a bodice block. And I think I have it. I've gone through this in my mind. I haven't actually done it in practice, but I think this is going to work well. So I'm going to call this the disposable blouse method, okay? Because that's what you're going to need to start out with. And I got this one on here. Whoopsie. Stopped in at Goodwill yesterday and picked this up because basically I'm going to be modifying this to create my bodice block. So let me turn the camera down and we're just going to go through this step by step. Hopefully it's going to make sense. Hopefully it's going to be fun. Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to give you a quick look-see of the pattern measurements and everything that you would have to be able to have just to start with to make the traditional block. Lots of things going on here, and sometimes it's very hard to get things accurate, So anyway, we're just going to set that aside for a minute. Fabulous information in here that I will be referring to in other videos. Okay, so I've got my top down here. I don't think I'm going to get the whole thing in the camera, but I want to tell you what I was looking for when I was getting one. First, it needs to be a sturdy woven, and I need it to fit like with just about zero ease at the underarm and up. And now, I had to get one that was actually, this is a size small, which I would never wear, because I'm a larger chested than would fit in a size small. But I'm not worried about how it's going to fit from here down. So just find yourself a shirt, a blouse, however you need to. Now, on the backs, it was hard to find one that did not have the little pleats in the back. These are so shallow. I'm not going to stress too much about it, but I need it to be a solid back. So what I'm actually going to do is press this and then just top stitch that down to, until it tapers out, and I'll show you that, so that it will be, just flat. If you can find one like this one that does not have the little pleat in the back, well, that's so much the better, But that one was a little bit big, but I liked the fabric anyway. So the other thing is, this does have a front pocket. I'm going to need to use my little razor blade and pull off this front pocket, because if it has front pockets, it's just going to get in the way. So I'll do that off camera. And for right now, we're leaving the sleeves on. I understand if you go down to a smaller size, the sleeves may be really, really snug. I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. But I want to save the sleeves because we're going to use those to make a master sleeve pattern after we deal with the bodice. And you don't need a collar. I might just cut this collar off of here just so that it's not, confusing things. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead, pull off my pocket, cut off the collar, and what was the other thing? Oh, top stitch down this little pleats here so that it's nice and flat, and I'll be right back. And if you haven't seen before, razor blades are fabulous seam rippers. They really, really are. Just be very careful. I get the ones with the little handle on the side. I Honestly, between here and my workshop, I go through packs of them, so. But you can see it's going to come off easily, and I'll use this up on the collar too, and you know, it leaves the fabric intact. Okay, so at this point you can see I just stitched it down, okay, and then down below it's flat, so I think that I'm good there. My collar is gone. I went ahead and pulled off the label because we don't need to advertise, and the pocket is off. Now, if you have a top, and again, it's important to pick your top so it fits you from this point up. So the neck is good. Make sure that the neck will fit you well, okay? Make sure that the shoulder seam is where it should be on your shoulder. And let me grab this little book here so I can show you once again on their diagram. Well, basically where it's gonna come down, you know, you want it to be right here, right there, okay? So that when it's coming down, that is off your shoulder. So make sure that this seam here is in the appropriate place, okay? So if your neck fits, your shoulder line is the right place, and under your arm, get it so that it doesn't have to be skin tight, but you don't want it really baggy right here at this bottom of the arm size seam, okay? Okay, now, if you did that and you got a blouse that is way too snug in the arms for you to be able to move around and do what we're going to need to do, what I would recommend is press your sleeve flat so the seam is down here at the bottom, okay? And I would say I'm going to give myself about 2 inches from the top, and let me find a little marker here so I can show that. So from about this point down to about the elbow, this point, right along this fold, I'm going to slice that open. So I'm just going to cut this and come up here and slice that open, and this will actually be helpful for when we're making our sleeve master pattern because we're going to need to enlarge it anyway. Okay, so I'm going to do that on both sides just because, you know, big biceps over here. It's going to make it easier to work with the blouse. Okay, so let's see if we can do this here. If you can see, I cannot even get close to buttoning it down here at my big hips. At the waist, I'm okay. And what I am making, it's not a sloper. My definition of a sloper is something that is like skin tight with 0 ease on your body. What I am making here is the tightest possible bodice that will still allow me to move. So, you know, that kind of thing where if I take a deep breath, am I gonna strain here and throw buttons, or if I'm reaching for something, is this gonna get all strained out of shape? Well, yeah, it is right here. So that's gonna need some modification, okay? This obviously is down here, but it's not a sloper with 0 ease. And if you can see, maybe you can't, I do have where I can pinch probably, what is that? I have about 1 inch of ease under my armpit for each one. But I want to make sure I can button the collar and it's comfortable. It's a tighter, you know, it's how it should be up here around my neck, and it is. I want to make sure that, just ignore my phone, that the side shoulder seams are up where they should be. And they are, so that's good, okay? Now, for the next thing, see if I can do this without a mirror here. I really should set up a big one over there. But I need to pay attention, and if your blouse has side darts in it, as long as they're not massive stylized ones, this should still work and everything. This one does not. This one does not have darts, which is even better in my opinion, so. Going to get a marker, and I am marking the fullest part of my bust on each side, okay? So right here, a big X and a big X, okay, with a Sharpie marker. If you are asymmetrical, this method is going to help you develop 2 different sides if you want. If you're a pretty symmetrical body, then you can just, you know, make one and double it. But if you have one side with a lower shoulder or, you know, a different size breast on one side than the other or something, you can adapt it and end up with a right and a left side bodice block, which is going to be really helpful, okay? So let me go ahead, take this back off, take it down to the table, and I'll show you the next step. I almost forgot, there's one more thing that we need to do, and that is figure out where the current waistline is. Now, this could change because we're going to be doing a full bust adjustment, which could lower the waistline in the front, okay? But for right now, I'm just putting a little skinny piece of elastic around here, okay? I'm going to tie that on really quick while I still have it on here. And then, come on, tie for me. I'm going to get my chalk, just because this could change, you know, and run it right along where that piece of elastic is, just in the front. I don't need to worry too much about where it is in the back, but just in the front. This is just a little temporary marking. So now that that is done, now I can go back to the table. Okay, so that waist chalk is very, very faint, so I'm just going to redraw it again here underneath my little X's. Okay, so that's where my waist is currently. Now, even though these might not be exact, I am pretty symmetrical, so I'm going to do the same markings on both sides. So the center front is actually where these buttonholes are and where those buttons are. But for right now, I'm just going to measure from the outside edge just to keep it, you know, uniform. So if I take this side here and I measure from, I should get a different ruler is what I ought to do here. I measure from this outside edge here to where the center of my little cross is. That is 3.5 inches. Well, let's see what it is over here. 3 3/4. You know what? We're going to split the difference and make it 3 5/8 just for funsies. So right here, I'm going to put a secondary little mark there, and over here I'm going to do the same. Okay, and I'm not too worried about the up and down this way right now. We'll deal with that in a moment. But what I want to do is I'm going to spread this open. Okay, now thankfully I have stripes on here, so it'll be easy for me to see how to cut that vertically. I want to cut it down to about 1 inch above my current waistline, and then whatever that measurement is, I'll take it up the same amount, okay? So from right here, and this is, you know, very vague, but if about 1 inch above is right here, okay, that's going to be about 4 3/4 inches below. And you know what, I'm going to do this with my black marker just so it'll be easy to see here. If you don't have stripes, just measure so it's parallel with the center edge here, okay? So 4 3/4 there, and that is right, isn't it? Yes. And 4 3/4 up above, okay? And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay, because what I'm doing is kind of an arts and crafts version of all this, you're going to need tape. I am using 2-inch wide blue masking tape, okay? So just get yourself some of that, and I would recommend just tear off a whole bunch of pieces that are, you know, about 6 inches wide, and just lay them somewhere where it's going to be handy to grab. Probably about 5 pieces, I think, would be handy. Now, one thing I also wanted to mention, the bottom of my blouse over here, if you can see, well, let me move it up a bit. The front and the back, when I lay it flat, are the same length. If you have a blouse where the back is a lot lower than the front, at this point, go ahead and cut it so they're both the same length. You don't need to worry about hemming it or anything. You know, this is, you know, all just so that we can get proportions. Because we're just doing this part of the full bust adjustment right now. When we do this one, we're going to have to lower the front enough so when we look in the mirror sideways, the front and the back are going to be at the same level. So just in preparation for that, you're going to need to make sure your front and back finished length at this point are the same. Okay, one other thing I wanted to point out, you know, I got my tank top under here, and I am wearing like leggings, but they have a side seam on it. Having a side seam on your leggings or whatever you have is going to make life a lot easier for a future step. But looking this way, I have the bra on that I would normally wear for every day. If I put this ruler where the fullest part of my bust is and put it pretty much vertically and just stand straight, I want to take a look and see where that is going to line up. Okay, and it's just at the base of my neck where my neck is coming out right here. Okay, on my blouse, which has a collar on it, that point is like a ½ inch or so from the seam line on that collar. But everybody is different, so you know that's how you can double check to make sure that you're making this cut in the right places. You know, just stand in front of a mirror and try it on both sides so you can see what's your average. Okay, so with that being said, I am now going to cut open these lines. That's why it is the disposable shirt method. Cutting all the way down here, and the same on the bottom, or the other side, I should say, not the bottom. Come on, Marie, get a grip. Okay, now I'm going to put my blouse back on and button up the front, and we'll see how this lays. Okay, so at this point, I'm not worrying too much about all this big hip stuff at the bottom because my bodice block is going to be pretty much from the waist up. If this is really, really pulling and it's really bothering you, well, you can go ahead and cut up or open up your side seam down here. Just make sure that you have at least a couple inches from your waistline, you know, and I might go ahead and do that just so this is not very distracting. But, okay, this is the side seam thing. I want to make sure that the side seam of my disposable top is lined up with the side seam all the way down, okay? And just to make sure that it's going to hold, I am going to pin my side seam up here in the middle. I'm looking, I have a mirror over there. And down here at my waistline, and I can feel that side seam down below here, so I can pin it straight to that. I'm going to do that on both sides. Okay, so I pretty much have it pinned at my waist, and I did open my sides a little bit, you know, still tight, but that's life. So I pinned it at my waist and up here at my bra strap level, right here. So I also want to make sure my center front is staying where a center front should. So I'm going to pin that down right here, okay? So now, if I'm looking at this, and I'm just going to kind of place these openings and make sure I would still be able to move. I can take a deep breath, whew, and everything, okay? I can see, if I'm throwing my shoulders back, I need a pretty wide opening here, okay? That's where my tape is going to come in. So just for right now, okay, just to make sure, I'm going to hold it in place, going straight across here, pulling everything down so it's even, putting one here, and I'm also going to put one up on the top, up here, and down below on each side. You know, I'll probably tape the whole thing up here. And then once I'm done with this, I'm going to take it off again and put it back on my table, you know, after I unpin myself, of course. Okay, so back down here at the table, what I'm going to do is I can feel where the edges of that fabric is underneath. And at the point where my little fullest point is, where the crosshatch is, I want to measure on both sides and see how close they are to each other. So my little crosshatch is right about here. If I measure across, that is just about 2 inches that I taped on this side, you know, just eyeballing it here. On this side, if I pull it back, my little crosshatch is right there, okay? And so if I measure from that point over, that is about 1 3/4. So again, I'm going to split the difference and make it 1 7/8 on both sides, okay? So it kind of sticks everywhere. I know. And actually, you know what? Now that I pull this apart, I'm thinking it would probably be easy if they're within 1/8 of an inch of each other. It probably is not going to hurt anything just to leave it, but I'm going to go ahead and make this the 1 7/8 across here. Move that back out. Okay, so now a breast is a ball. It's not just two-dimensional, it's a round ball. So with the understanding that I had to spread it out farther this way, I'm also going to have to drop it that way, okay? And this is where it comes in, where you need to make sure that your bottoms are level to start with, all right? So just so I don't lose track of anything in case my tape comes off, I'm going to go ahead and get a cheat sheet written over off to the side to indicate that this spread was 1 7/8 inches. And now I am going to add even more tape to fill it up. So underneath here where the tape is kind of sticking, I'm actually going to be putting some on the back so that it's not going to stick to my skin so much, so I have a level piece here. And actually, you know what would work better? Thinking right here is I'm just going to cut a piece of fabric about that size and just put it on the back side of this for right now. So I just tore off a little scrap of cloth. I'm using white because it was handy. And I'm just going to kind of organize all this so I don't have things sticking to itself like that. And put my broadcloth here. That's going to work well. Okay. Excellent. But since the broadcloth is there, I want to make this kind of like a new piece of fabric, so I am going to fill in the gaps with more tape. Okay, so I am going to put a line right here, and I'm just going to do a parallel one over here. This is where I had my cross line for the fullest part of my bust. Wherever yours will be, you know, gravity hits us all eventually. So with that little line there, I'm going to come over and I'm going to do one side at a time. And again, with the idea that this center front here should be straight, okay? And I'm just not doing it on center, which is where the buttons are. I'm doing it on the side over here, okay? If I straighten this out, put my ruler here, and figure out where that line is, that's going to give me a pretty good idea of where to draw this all the way across, okay? Now I can see where the top to bottom is, where the center point was, which is right here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make those markings on this side. I'm extending it 3 or 4 inches on each side. At this point, actually I should make it uniform. So let me go ahead and make it 4 inches on each side. I just don't want to come into the center front. I can come up to where the band is, I think would be safe. But I do not want to cut that band, okay? So about 4 inches on each side. Okay, so with these marks on, once again, I am going to cut straight across. So I'm starting, about a 1/2 inch away from that little front band here, and I'm going to cut through my little backing fabric also. I'm not sure why this is being difficult here. Okay, and then cutting straight across that little X over here. Okay, so I have it opening this way now. I'm going to do that on both sides and then put my blouse back on. Actually, before I put it on, because I need these to hang naturally and it's way too tight on my hips, I'm going to go ahead and cut to within, about 1 inch of where my currently chalked in waistline is from before on both sides, so that, you know, I won't have anything bound up, because we need to be able to see if they're hanging, that they're hanging correctly. Okay, so now that I have my sides slit open so that it can hang, if I look in my mirror sideways, and I'm standing on my tiptoes here, so that my back looks to be the same level as my front, okay? If I do that, this is where it is. But if you can see, I have an opening here and here. It's not as wide as this one because every body is different, so yours might be different. But I can see where that is, and it looks like these openings at the fullest point are about 1.25 inches, okay? So I'm, once again, while it's on me, and my center front is centered, my side seams are at the sides, I'm not really worried about the back right now, just, you know, sides and front. I'm gonna go ahead and put more tape over the centers here, just to hold it in that position. So, I'm getting that handy dandy blue masking tape and place it here. And again, while you're doing this, you want to be able to move, you know. This is going to give you a very good starting position for your block. Now later on, you can always, you know, adjust it, tweak it, add a 1/4 inch here, take a 1/4 inch away there or something. But at least you'll have a good working place to start, okay? And that's my intention with this, because I have spent, it felt like days trying it, you know, the standard way, just to get something that was close to fitting, and, you know, ended up very frustrated several times with several different methods. So this is what I would come up with. If you like it, enjoy. If not, don't worry about it. Okay, so now I've got all of this roundness built in here. Just ignore my arms. That will be for another video. I'll do the back in another video also. Okay, but at this point, while my front and back are the same length, now I'm going to put my string back around my waist, or this little piece of elastic, I should say. Okay. Make sure it's settled where I feel comfortable with my waist being, which is right here. And now I'm going to get my marker, okay? So looking in the mirror, I'm going to draw a line. And sometimes your front might be at a different height than your back, you know? Everybody is different. The thing I like about this is you are no longer in a size. Your body is no longer a number. It's just you, you know? So yes, my neck may be a small, my bust may be a large, my butt may be an extra large, as it is. But that's okay, that's just me. And I'm gonna have a pattern block with my name on it, with no numbers attached, you know, no stigma, no hate. So let me take this back off, put it back down the table, and we'll go to the next step. Oh, there's my microphone, I was looking for it. Okay, so once again on the inside, I do have a bit of tape showing. So I'm just putting another piece of fabric over that so it's not going to want to get out of position, or I could put another piece of tape on it, but I have extra fabric hanging here, so why not? Okay, so here is my front, all right, and it's pretty much done, but I don't want to cut my front bodice off yet because I want to deal with the back. So I guess I might as well do that now, you know, it can't hurt. What I'm going to do is open this up so I can see where I drew that waistline on each of my fronts. I did not draw it straight across the back. I could not reach that way. You know, maybe you are more flexible than me, but I cannot. So, making sure that this is nice and straight. And this looks like a pretty nice happy medium between here and here. They're like off by about 3/8 of an inch. That's close enough for me for right now, for this point. I'm just going to draw a line straight across for my back. Okay, now the back of a pattern block will traditionally have darts coming up here, Very hard to pin on yourself, but what I can do is put this on, pin my side seams where they need to be, and then I can pinch whatever the extra is and get an idea of how thick that is, and then we'll spread it out. So once again, let me put it back on, and where this line is that I just drew, I'm going to pinch it. Okay, so I've got my waist pinned. Okay, now back here, hello kitty, at that line, just ignore her, she's very needy, I'm going to pinch it. Okay, just pinch out a good amount of the excess. I'm not pinching it so it's super tight, just enough that it's not floppy. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and put a pin at the base of my fingers right here, okay, where that little fold is. So now I can take it off and see what I am going to be dealing with. Okay, so I had to change the battery in my camera, but I want to show you this is my fold right here, all right? So if I measure that, from the fold to the pin is about 1.5 inches, which means 3 inches altogether, you know, because there's 2 sides of it. I'm not actually going to take this pin out right now. I'm not going to deal with that right now. I just wanted to make sure I had that marked, because what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut my front off. All right. So I have flat felled seams here. If you can see, there's 2 lines of stitching. So I'm cutting straight up the center of it. If you just have a regular seam, cut it at that seam. The block is going to be the right size at the seam line, not at the stitch at the cut line. This is at the seam line. Okay. Now, up here at my sleeve, again, I have a seam, and then I have the second row for my flat felled stitching. This is actually a nicely made blouse. Sorry I had to cut you up, but it's for the greater good. Okay, and so once again, I'm going to cut up right in the middle of those 2 lines, okay, and cut the whole front off. It's hard to do this right here. Okay. And of course, what I do on the one side, I will also be doing the other side. Now, this blouse has a yoke, so where the yoke is not the top of the shoulder. It's actually up a little bit higher. So if I place this down here, I believe it was about 1 inch in. I probably should have marked this earlier. But I'm going to put a little mark here, straight across where that shoulder seam is, okay? It's right here. And I'm just going to draw it coming across up to the neckline and then up the neck. That's where I'm going to slice this off. Okay, so now this front side is off. I'm going to do the same thing to this side. Okay, so with that done, what I still have here is both sleeves that are attached to the back, okay, and my back piece. I'm going to set this aside. This is going to be a separate video for another day. But we have these 2 pieces, okay? And again, this is just going to give you a very good starting point. But if I look now at where that fullest part of the bust is, okay, that's where I'm going to put my dart. So it's kind of arbitrary where you're going to put it, but for me, I'm going to put it coming in from the side, and I'm going to be cutting a line straight to where that center point is. It might be easier to actually to see this on the back, okay? So I can see on the back where that opening is. Right here, okay? So I'm just going to stick a straight pin straight up that center point, like that. And over here, I'm going to do the same thing. And as you can see, they are not identical, but they're close enough that once we put them together, we can average it, okay? So, from the bottom of my sleeve here, okay, if this is on the straight right here, lining that up with my grid, I'm going to want to draw a line straight here from the outside edge. Now, you don't want to put this line all the way to that point. You want to give yourself about an inch all the way around from that biggest or the fullest point where there's no stitching lines, okay? Because it's never any good when you have a seam going right up to the fullest point, you have that little point sticking out. That's awkward. So from this top point here, I am going to measure down 2 inches. Put my little ruler here. And actually it should be 2.5 inches. It's going to work better for me. Again, everybody is different. Okay, so I've got that there, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other one. But from this point, I can cut this from the side up to that circle. Now, if I open this up to flatten it, I have the dart that I need to be able to construct this 3-dimensional object, okay? So if again, I lay this side on flat on my grid, and let me grab a couple weights here to hold it down, okay? So this is going to be smoothed out this way, and this is going to be smoothed out this way. All right, now again, below the waist, I'm not really worrying about too much, and I'm not actually cutting this at the waist point yet. I might cut it, you know, about 4 inches lower, just because this is so rough that I may need to make an adjustment, you know. But here we have one side, all right. I'm going to do the same thing to the other one, but what I want to do is actually get a piece of paper, put it underneath here, and trace it out, and then get the other piece down here and do the same thing. All right, so I just have some 18-inch wide craft paper here, and I am placing my shirt. Again, knowing that when I make my final cut, my center front is actually 1/2 inch in, okay, but we're not worrying about that right now. Get some more weights here, put one up here. Okay, so and I'm only going to go probably about 4 inches below. Just ignore how that might go in and out, because traditionally there'd be a dart down here too. If I put this here and put this here, now I should cut this collar off actually. I should have done that before. All right, off camera, I'm going to go ahead and peel this collar off here, because if I want to get the accurate neckline, it's actually going to be right around here. You know what? No, we're just going to cut it. Just going to cut it just above that stitching line, so it'll hold its shape. Okay. Just ignore the phone. All right, so now this is my, in general, piece. And you can see I needed a pretty good sized dart here. Now in pencil, I'm going to go ahead and draw this whole thing, you know. And again, if you are very asymmetrical, just keep your 2 sides separate and make your mock-up with the 2 different versions. I'm going to be averaging it out, okay? So here's this, coming around here, all the way up, coming over, and down. Oops, that is in my way. Okay, so this should be a good neckline for a basic block. Okay, and then coming down here to the waist. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and draw my line down about 4 inches or so and just make a hash mark. Okay, make sure all of that showed up decently. I don't know if you can see it, but it did. Hang on, let me tip you out just a bit. Okay, so if you can see, here's my dart. And so what I'm going to do now is clip the dart on the other side, okay, just like I did this one, clipping it to like 1 inch away from that center point, the very highest fullest point of the bust, and get it flattened out. And then I'm going to place it, so the next one will be wrong side down, and I'm going to place it right on top of this pencil drawing here. And I want to see, you know, where they're close, where they're very off, and where I may want to make that modification. Okay, so for just doing crafty time with masking tape, it's not that bad, but I need to show you on the dart, I cut this upper part 1/2 inch too short on this side, or shorter than the other side. So this part of the dart is 1/2 inch taller. I don't think that's going to make that much of a difference right now, but the opening size is the same if I just shift it down. Everything else seems to be pretty close, really pretty close. So at this point, I am going to consider this my bodice front block here. I do need to, before I forget, come over here and make a line at that 1/2 inch point so that I can remember that that is actually where the center front line is. I'm just going to pop this here. Okay, and then where I have it stopped down here at this point is well below the waist. I don't have the waist marked. It's probably right about here, okay? But I am going to go ahead at this part being flat, just draw a straight line this way. Okay, so this is my block. Next time I'm going to go ahead and get that cut out, and I will make a mock-up of this after I have the back done, because it's a lot easier to compare sizes when you have a front and a back sewn together. But I hope that this was helpful to somebody. We're just going to continue this, so next time you know what to expect. We're going to do a similar thing like this, but to the back darts. And then after that, we'll make the mock-up and do the final sizing. So hope that's helpful, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.